Hi everyone. First off, massive apologies for the gap between episodes. I've unfortunately been out of action for the past 7 or 8 weeks with a slit disc. It's been rough to say the least. Constant pain, limited mobility, but I'm slowly on the mend. Still not 100%, but getting there. Now, onto something exciting. If you didn't already know, my show is part of a global network of incredible podcasts known as the Umbrella Collective. A group of passionate creators sharing weird and wonderful and often chilling stories from all corners of the world. And thanks to this amazing community, I've had some support during my downtime. This week, I'm beyond thrilled to introduce a very special episode brought to you by the brilliant team at Mysterious PNW Pod. We've done an episode swap, and trust me, you're in for a treat. Their show dives deep into the eerie and unexplained of the Pacific Northwest. And in this episode, they take you inside the Seattle Death Museum, a fascinating and spine-tingling place that explores society's relationship with death, mortality, and the macabre. It's an unforgettable listen. Dark, thought-provoking, and absolutely gripping. So please show your love and appreciation for the amazing folks at the Mysterious PNW Pod. Give this episode a listen, leave a review, and if you like what you hear, go check out more of their fantastic content. Thank you for sticking with me. I'll be back with more episodes soon. Until then, enjoy this chilling detour, courtesy of our friends at the Mysterious PNW.
Welcome to the Mysterious Pacific Northwest. I'm your host, Jen. Alongside me is my best friend and co-host, Sarah.
Hi, guys.
I have a crazy episode for you, and the fact that you clicked on this episode tells me that you are either as curious as I was, or you are wanting to be curious. So, either way,
Okay.
welcome.
Welcome, guys.
So I feel like over the last several years, my interest with death and the death industry has really evolved from curiosity to fascination.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things to do, especially during the month of October, is to plan fairly elaborate day trips and really honestly plan trips in general. I have like a stockpile of them that someday I'll just be able to pull out and be like, we're ready to go.
I mean, I can attest that she plans really good and very thorough trips every time.
Well, and usually they're filled with like 7 or 8 different activities. I go down and figure out like a price, how long they take. It's a little type A OCD, but
like amazing type A OCD.
if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a Virgo. And so like this may or may not be news to you, 40 something episodes in, but hey, it's me. I'm the problem. I really do love to explore and find new and interesting things to do. So a couple weeks back, we really wanted to get me kind of out of my funk. I've been kind of like a dark kind of place. And Sarah was like, well, let's go do something. And I was like, but what? And she's like, I don't know. Because that's Sarah's like favorite answer. I don't know. It's like Forky from Toy Story. I don't know.
I'm like, I just come up with the vibes and then, the structure comes with it.
So I kind of sat down and I roughly planned 7 different options for us to do that day. And if you follow us on Instagram, you got to see like a little like sneak peek of kind of what we did. We went down to Mount Rainier and then we did the LB steam train. And it was the perfect day We had so much fun. I think we talked about it in
Much
an
fun.
episode before that we became train people.
We did. We
Like-
really did. It was so cool.
Like, we weren't train people before, like, they were cool, but now I'm like, trains.
Trains.
So I was kind of doing a quick search of like haunted or spooky things to do in Seattle to make sure there wasn't something new or something in our 10 years of friendship that we haven't done. And I was so excited to see that, yes, I found something that we haven't done, and it was right up my alley. And I can really kind of drag Sarah to anything.
Oh, yeah,
Like-
definitely. I'm always just in the car.
So several years back, Sarah treated me to a Spooked in Seattle tour. And I was kind of looking on their page to see if they had like a new tour, a new like theme that we didn't do before. And I saw something that made that little part of my brain kind of turn on with excitement. And I really shuddered and I said out loud, ooh. Like, I was so excited when I
Mhm.
saw the Seattle Death Museum.
Ooh.
So you can add it to one of their existing tours or by scheduling a tour separately. And I'm going to start off saying, like, right here on the top, they do not know who we are. They are not sponsoring us.
No.
They've never, nothing. I've never been to this museum. And so I did what I figured was the next best thing.
Mm-hmm.
I started researching.
Of course.
So this episode, as you can tell by the title, is all about the museum, the exhibits that they have, and then we're going to talk about two subjects that really absolutely fascinate me. The
Okay.
history of postmortem photography and
Mm-hmm.
death masks.
Oh.
So I'm going to get this first exhibit in the museum done and over first because I have an intense fear of dolls,
Yes.
especially Victorian dolls,
Mm-hmm.
older dolls, dolls at garage sales, dolls at thrift stores, and of course, confirmed haunted dolls.
Yeah, you don't play with that.
No, I do not. So the Death Museum is home to several haunted dolls. And by looking at photos online, so Google on their website, like you can go on Instagram and like type in the search and pictures that anybody else that have publicly shared them will pop up. And they have an entire glass case of terrifying dolls. Like I almost sat there and I went, no, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could do this. I kind of sat back in my car because like I have this weird chunk of time that when my work school day is over and my daughter's school day is over is
Mhm.
when I usually get most of the work done for the podcast. It's also
Mhm.
like when I'm on social media, like engaging with you guys the most. And I sat there and I was like, I don't know if I could actually like move past this part. And I don't know if I could actually go inside specifically because of this. Like nothing else really scares me but dolls.
But dolls. And confirmed haunted dolls.
Mhm. So the most noteworthy in their collection include Mr. Creepy, Annabelle, the Demon Doll, and the Junior and Franklin Mint Bride Doll. So
Okay.
in my mind, it's just a big list of nope.
Yeah, a whole lot of no.
Nope.
Nope.
So, Mr. Creepy, according to their website, was made in the 1960s to look almost identical to the ventriloquist who operated Mr. Creepy. Alongside Mr. Creepy, the ventriloquist also had a doll made of his wife's likeness as well.
Okay.
In the 1970s, the couple died in an automobile accident, and the dolls were sold at an estate sale after their deaths to a local antique dealer.
Mhm.
Originally, the dolls were placed in a case together, but eventually they had to move into a smaller shop, and the male doll was placed in a case behind the cash register,
Okay.
and the female doll was lost in a box in a storage unit.
Wait, lost? Like lost?
I could not find any information on her location and where she
Okay.
currently is. So
that somehow is more terrifying than Mr. Creepy at this point.
right, like it's part of kind of the lore of these two particular dolls is where is she?
Mm-hmm.
So the woman who owned the dolls noted that she would often find Mr. Creepy in various positions the next morning when she came in from work. Like he was in a glass case, kind of propped in there, but she would come in, he would be folded over, he would be on his side, just very different than how she left, the night before.
Okay. Not
And
okay.
she often felt like she was being watched when she was working, and Mr. Creepy would be directly behind her back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how Mr. Creepy received his name.
Because he's being Mr. Creepy.
He's being creepy. In desperation, she offered to sell Mr. Creepy for $1 to a man named Ross, who I'm fairly positive is one of the owner-operators of Spooked in Seattle.
Okay.
And of course, his curiosity was piqued, and Mr. Creepy found his new home at Spooked in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Since he arrived, his head and eyes have moved several times, and most people who come near Mr. Creepy experience that sensation of being watched, especially once you turn your back.
Oh, I don't like that.
So the demon doll dates back to the 1920s when she was owned by a little girl who was reportedly possessed, according to their website.
Mm-hmm.
The little girl's parents hired a priest to come and perform an exorcism. The priest successfully removed the demon from the little girl. However, when it left her body, it went inside of her beloved baby doll. The family called the priest back to their home to rid the doll of the demon. However, that wasn't possible. To protect the family, he wrapped a rosary around her wrist to prevent the demon from escaping. Over the decades, various family members took care of the doll, and they were always very cautious of that rosary and making sure that it stayed in place. After generations, this family had kind of grown tired of tending to the doll and to the rosary and donated her to Spooked in Seattle. According to their website, the day after she arrived, staff found the rosary now hanging upside down, which is, if you don't know, is a sure sign of demonic activity.
Yeah, that's a big no-go.
It's a no-go. In the world, there is an unknown amount of haunted dolls. However, the Death Museum is home to a replica of what is considered the most haunted doll in the world, Annabelle. The original Annabelle doll currently resides in a now closed museum by the one and only Ed and Lorraine Warren. We may do like a mini episode on Ed and Lorraine, as they are infamous in the paranormal world and infamous collectors. The doll is said to be possessed by a malevolent spirit and is associated with several disturbing incidents, including attacks on those who come in contact with it. Originally a Raggedy Ann doll, Annabelle was gifted to a nursing student in the 1970s. The student and her roommate began noticing strange occurrences, such as the doll moving from one place to another and even writing messages. Concerned, they sought help from a medium who claimed the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a deceased girl named Annabelle. However, the Warrens concluded that the spirit was not benign and took the doll into their possession. They placed it in a glass case in their occult museum, warning visitors not to open it. Annabelle's story has been popularized in films like The Conjuring.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not a terrifying collection, the Seattle Death Museum is home to multiple haunted objects. They house a clock from a former insane asylum that is considered to be extremely haunted. According to aghost.org, the clock belonged to an administrator at the asylum. He committed suicide, and allegedly the clock stopped at the exact moment he died.
Oh.
It was acquired by the owners of Spooked in Seattle, and it said that the clock only worked once at Preston Castle. There's a really cool video that I'll add into the sources for this episode that shows the clock not working, then immediately starting working. And an EVP session, if you don't know what an EVP is, it's an electric voice phenomenon. So it's what they use to capture ghost voices.
Mm-hmm.
The session was done near the clock and resulted in an answer of yes when asked if a spirit fixed the clock. And to this day, the clock has never worked again. The museum is also home to a ritualistic dagger that has been used in multiple satanic rituals, and according to their website, that includes animal sacrifices.
Oh.
The Cross of Hope also calls the museum home. It said this cross was given to a young boy who was possessed by an evil entity. His family was given the cross, a jar of holy water, and candles, and that would kind of help keep the entity away. And according to their website, the family came home one evening, finding the boy's room completely on fire. Everything burned except the cross. You can see a photo of the cross on their website, and it's completely void of any evidence that it was once in a massive fire. According to a Google search, the most haunted object in America is the Dybbuk box.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah and I have actually stood in front of the Dybbuk box at Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an intense feeling of nausea and almost like deep sadness and dread when we were in the room holding the Dybbuk box.
Mm-hmm.
The Dybbuk box is a wine cabinet that gained notoriety for its alleged connection to supernatural phenomena. The name comes from the term Dybbuk, which in Jewish folklore really refers to a malicious spirit that possesses the living. The box is said to contain a Dybbuk that brings misfortune and terror to those who come in contact with it.
Okay.
The box was originally purchased at an estate sale in 2001 by a college student who reported experiencing a series of disturbing events after acquiring it. Stories of strange occurrences such as nightmares, unexplained sounds, and physical symptoms quickly spread, leading the box to be labeled as cursed. In 2004, the Dybbuk box was sold on eBay, where it attracted significant media attention and really fueled further interest in this box's haunted reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, it's become a popular subject in horror films, books, documentaries, really cementing its place in modern folklore as a symbol of cursed objects.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember that box, and it was something for sure.
Well, when Zach Bagans originally, brought it to his museum, he made people, and we had to sign one too. You had to sign waivers that you won't hold the museum liable for scratches, things like attaching to you and coming home.
Mm-hmm.
And he has attempted to open the Dybbuk box a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's actually successfully gotten to the point where he opened it. I think during COVID, they kind of locked down in his museum, and I do believe they eventually do open it. It has been opened once before by a man who then gifted it to his mother. And his mother suffered a horrific stroke. And I've done a lot of research on the Dybbuk box. And when he went to the hospital, she couldn't say much, but she did write "no gift" on a piece of paper. And he was like, well, I gave you a gift, it was for your birthday. And she said, bad gift.
Oh, gosh.
And so at one point, I know the Dybbuk box lived in a airtight container in the ground. At one point. A lot of some of the worst misfortune in the world has been linked to times when the Dybbuk box has been opened. So highly, highly haunted object. And that was just a quick little overview of objects in the world that are haunted. There are so many. And just like with haunted dolls, there are hundreds of them. they're horrible. They're horrible things to look at.
Oh yeah.
And I truly believe that spirits, even malevolent ones, attach to items. So
Mhm.
to me, it's not surprising that dolls do get haunted, or an object retains,
Mhm.
negative emotions, negative feelings, negative thoughts can hold into an item as well.
Mhm.
So, the Seattle Death Museum is home to a lot more than just haunted objects and dolls. They have a pretty vast collection of embalming equipment, Victorian mourning attire. That is one of the most prominent things on their website. It's modeled by two skeletons,
Oh.
various funeral items, and a lot of information about the history of spiritualism. But what kind of immediately intrigued me was their collection of post-mortem photography.
Okay.
So, postmodern photography is also known as mourning photography, was a practice that became prominent in the 19th century.
Okay.
This form of photography involved taking portraits of deceased individuals, often in really elaborate settings designed to invoke this sense of life, dignity, and remembrance. So,
Mhm.
really, a beautiful, in my opinion, a very beautiful way of remembering someone. Families would commission these photographs as a way to memorialize their loved ones, especially during a time when death rates were so high to diseases and inadequate medical care.
Mhm.
The images are often featured the deceased in lifelike poses, sometimes dressed in their finest clothing, and occasionally surrounded by their family members or personal belongings.
Mhm.
Postmortem photography has served several purposes. It's acted as like a form of tribute. It really, from everything that I've read, I found really cool books that I kind of like delved into. It really helped families cope with grief and
Mhm.
kind of provided a tangible memory of the deceased. While that practice has kind of largely fallen out of favor in modern times, it really remains a fascinating aspect of photography history and cultural attitudes towards death and mourning.
Mhm.
Today, these photographs are often viewed as a poignant reminder of the past and evoke discussions about the perceptions of death in different eras.
Mhm.
So, some of the most notable postmortem photographs are of a Norwegian theologian, Bernard Paas. The photo was taken in 1907 and shows the deceased Paas surrounded in flowers. A photograph of the deceased Emperor Frederick III of Germany shows him in bed with a simple display of flowers that was taken the day after his death. And Sarah, I have a funny story before we talk about the images I'm going to have you look at.
Okay.
So last weekend I was kind of still working on this episode, and I went to a racetrack with my family, and
I remember
I'm
this.
I'm not a girl who really, I'm not a sports girl. Like, I like
No.
hockey because of fights and,
Mhm.
food.
Yes.
But I was bored to tears. Like, my
Mhm.
husband and my daughter were having the time of their life, and I'm just like, meh. So we're sitting like on the front line. We don't really sit in the stands because I'm a big old baby and I like my comfortable chair and like my space. I'm a space girl. And we were sitting near where they pass out like the trophies and stuff for like the winners. And again,
Mhm.
I'm completely unbothered. And on the screen of my phone, I'm literally looking at pictures of dead people and
Mhm.
children and, old dead people.
Yeah.
And there are kids behind me as they're like watching people get their trophy. And I guess my husband said he kept looking back and they were clearly looking like on the
At what
screen,
you were seeing. Oh gosh.
like disturbed and
Mhm.
making ththese like faces, but then continuously like looking at like what I was doing.
Oh gosh.
But I sent you
Mhm.
some photographs,
Some of the ones that
and
the people at the raceway got to see too.
these are not the ones that they saw.
No.
So, in all of these images, I am going to post these on social media. I am going to put a little trigger kind of warning on the front of them in
Mhm.
case you may find these images, not something you want to see.
Mhm.
But the first image is the one that, out of really all of them, that freak me out.
Yeah.
This woman had died earlier in the day, and her family wanted to memorialize her. And in the photo, her eyes are completely wide open.
Oh, but looks so vacant.
But then
So
looking,
terrifyingly vacant.
like looking up towards something. And I'm not quite sure what her eyes are kind of fixated on.
Yeah.
But
it just it looks like it's like looking just past the camera. Like it's creepy, and then like you can see like the kind of like slumpedness of the body, and then like the only like solid thing is where her eyes are focused, and it just feels very off-putting to stare at.
In post-mortem photography, it wasn't uncommon for the photographer to use props to prop the body, especially if the body had been put into rigor, or if the body hadn't gone into rigor yet, to pose them in certain ways. And a little bit of a trigger warning. Another common thing a photographer would use would be toothpicks to prop open eyeballs to make them look like they're still alive.
Yes.
So the woman to the right, so the next photo, I couldn't find really any information about who she was, how she died, other than just her photo. And in this one, her eyes are closed. She's not posed at all. You could tell that she's definitely inside of a casket, just like our first photo. And based off of her outfit, I wonder if she was a nun.
Yeah.
Or worked in the Catholic diocese in some
Form or
position, just because of that white collar and then the black dress, but it could also be a mourning dress. It was very typical that families of stature would wear mourning outfits. The longer the length, the more you knew the person. It was also common that young girls would also wear mourning dresses, but sometimes they would be white versus black like adults. And typically the longer you knew someone, the longer you were in mourning for. And again, typically mothers and daughters or wives would also wear veils over their heads.
Which, like, you can almost see it, like, around her hair. Like, it doesn't really look like her hair. It looks more like a veil or, like, some kind of, like, something around her head, for sure.
Yeah. The next photo is a mom and a dad with their recently departed daughter. This was a very common practice to pose with your parents, especially of younger children. Like the photo below, that is of a very young child who is posed in like a wicker basket, almost like a pram.
Yeah.
But the photo of the parents with their daughter, she's dressed in her pearls. But she
definitely like in her best dress. But you can see like she's kind of slumped and her eyes are kind of like unfocused, but like leaning, like, and like it like the parents do a good job of kind of also having, but like they both are also still kind of looking at something. It feels like,
and her eyes to
very
me,
like self-raised,
right? And her eyes to me are almost looking very similar to that first photo I showed you, kind
like
of
the
gazing
off center,
gazing past just something. The last photo is
so creepy.
Is of a Civil War soldier. The information that I could find about him was he was shot multiple times, and the suit is is clothing that was donated temporarily to clothe him for this photo. They propped him in the chair, they posed his arms, and you can very clearly see in this photo that rigor has 100% set in by that kind of awkward position of his left hand and how it's almost reaching over to his right knee.
Yeah, like the way it's just positioned, like you can definitely feel like it looks stiff, and the way like his head is kind of leaning looks uncomfortable, and like his is almost more terrifying because like you can't really see like the pupils of his eyes focus, so it looks almost like his eyes are rolled back inside his head or something. So it just makes it look very eyeless.
Yes.
And so
yes.
it's almost more off-putting than the
Mhm.
first one with where her eyes are focused on
Right.
something. And even like the little baby and like its eyes looking almost directly at you, like are both off-putting, but like you can see the eyes. But this one, it's just like it's almost like the lack of eyes just feels very I can't stare at it for very long. I'm like, I'm just off-putted by that.
In a way, though, when I look at these images, I do find that sense of peace, knowing that whether or not you like the idea of taking a photo of somebody after if they've passed, I really truly do believe that the concept of postmortem photography really gives a sense of almost closure to their loved ones, and like none of these images are gruesome.
No, not at all.
I find the one specifically of the parents with their daughter almost beautiful in a way.
That's the one that I'm like the least disturbed by. I think because there's like and like I like the concept especially for it because of that time. Pictures were so new of a concept. Like
Exactly.
it was very elite thing where like nowadays pictures are so commonplace for people. So people have pictures of them living their whole life where like this is the last time you're going to see them before they are either cremated or buried or whatever is done. And so it makes the most sense. Like I understand where it comes from and I like that aspect. But like some of them, like you look at it like from a perspective of now and you're just like, it just feels off. Like I understand I like if it was mine and I had no other way of looking at a picture, but I guess like when you grow up knowing that you always have pictures of people living and seeing live pictures of people, it feels very odd to see a person by themselves in a photo that's not alive anymore. I think it's the solo person in a photo because you know that whole like eyes are windows to the soul and a picture can capture a soul aspect. Like it feels very like I like that you said peace. Like for me it looks almost like captured. Like the soul is captured in that moment and it can either be very peaceful, i.e. the parents with the daughter, like it looks like okay, she's there for one last moment for her parents before she goes on. But like the ones by themselves, I just feel like they look very like we're trapped there versus just like a snapshot of a moment, which I'm just so used to, I guess, seeing pictures of like now times is like pictures are more of now a snapshot of a moment versus like this like final capturing of a person's like whole identity in life.
Well, and you brought up a really interesting point is photography, especially in the late 1800s, early 1900s, like you said, was reserved for people who had money and were able to capture, you know, photos of their loved ones. Like some of these people have never been photographed before. So there's zero photographic proof that they existed in the world other than a birth and a death certificate. And I think specifically of the young infant, and I wouldn't say infant in this photo, this child to me is somewhere in between like 10 to 13 months old. Odds are they were never photographed before. And I think of the parents with lack of like anything to remember their child by. And kind of talking in modern terms, with the accessibility of the internet and being able to put your entire life online if you choose to, there are people who, if they have stillbirths, they do choose.
They do photo albums and things like that for that. Yeah. And like that's why like even the baby one is not as like creepy. Like I don't know. It's something about like the full grown people one just feels like even the one where her eyes are closed, like it feels very like captured. To the other ones feel very much more about like remorse and grief and like holding the person as they were. Where like these ones, like the way they are, they feel very I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain. Like the ones where like I can almost see where the grief is in the photo, I see it. And then the other ones just feel very captured. And that's the only word I can think of is they feel very captured. And that's just all I can hear and see.
If you do a Google search, hundreds of thousands of images pop up. A lot of them are linked to the same few books. It really is a interesting look into the early stages of death and the early stages of showing grief, specifically for people who didn't ever have that before. And prior to, postmortem photography, the way that people could have been immortalized in death was death masks.
Mm-hmm.
So the museum is also home to a pretty large collection of death masks. And death masks are really a fascinating aspect of cultural history, really serving lots of different purposes across societies and time periods. The practice of creating death masks can be traced back to ancient civilizations, where they were often used to honor the deceased and preserve their likeliness for posterity.
Mm-hmm.
One of the earliest known uses of the death mask was in ancient Egypt, where they were made to cover the faces of mummies.
Mm-hmm.
These masks were made of gold or other precious metals. They were designed to protect the deceased in the afterlife and ensure recognition by the gods. And the most famous example of this is King Tut. And this has been several years back, but the King Tut traveling museum exhibit came to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so excited to go. I bought tickets. I went down. And then that day they had to close for, I don't even remember the reason. So I got to come back a few days later.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing really everything that travels with that exhibit, I don't even know if it's traveling any further, is incredible. Like the actual death mask of King Tut was, here in Seattle. And I bought, of course, like the big picture book that they sell in like the gift shop or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was really my first ever introduction to the idea of a death mask, was by King Tut.
Mm-hmm.
In ancient Greece and Rome, death masks were created from wax or plaster, capturing the features of the deceased. And these masks served both as a way to remember the dead, as also means to honor them, often being displayed at funerals or kept in family shrines. And wealthy families would commission masks for their ancestors to showcase their lineage. During medieval periods, death masks reemerged in Europe, particularly among notability. They were often used in funerary practices and were sometimes cast in metal or made from plaster. These masks also played a role in the development of portraiture, influencing artists and sculptors. In contemporary times, death masks have taken on a more historical and artistic significance. They're studied by historians and artists alike, serving as a really valuable resource in understanding the customs and beliefs surrounding death in various cultures. Some modern artists also use the concept of death masks in their work to explore themes of mortality or identity.
Okay.
And the most famous death masks in the world, this first photo, Sarah, I'm going to send you, is of the philosopher Dante. This mask was produced on the day of his death on September 13th, 1320. And you can tell by looking at the photo that it almost kind of looks like marble.
It does.
And typically death masks are made within moments to a day of the person passing to retain the most complete look of who they were in life, because your body, your body's dying and then has died, everything, even your features start to change, your eyes start to change very quickly.
Yeah,
and so the idea is to capture these moments immediately, just like with the postmortem photography.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, it's a really interesting
I'm less
image
freaked
to
out
look
by
at.
the death masks than I am by the dead people in photographs.
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting concept. Like I fully understand where it's coming from and everything like that. And it's interesting to be able to really like actively capture what a person looks like that, unlike artists' interpretation of people, because then you still get an interpretation of someone, even if it is the most exact artist in the world and they're literally like dot for dot, line for line on someone's face. It's still their perspective of the person, where like this feels very much like I'm literally just like copy pasting your face onto
you can
it.
see his wrinkles and his forehead,
like in his
and that
vein,
almost like and
the
that
like vein at the
brown.
tempo. Yeah, I see that. And like the wrinkles, like you said, that exist kind of at the top. You can see like that soft little bit of like where they're definitely aged, but like he still seems so young. So then it really like brings to the attention the fact that they were young when they were dying at this point in time. Like that's another like aspect that I think is really interesting about seeing it like this. Like you really can almost see that person now. Like you could literally sit there, take that, put that on a person's body and be like, that could be a person of today's time. But they lived, 700 years ago and died so young.
John Dillinger was a member of organized crime in Chicago in the 1930s. He was once considered public enemy number 1, and he was killed in a shootout with the FBI on July 22nd, 1934. And the photo that I'm showing you is him receiving his death mask at the morgue in Chicago the day after his death. And I will put another little like trigger warning, like blank photo for those who want to choose to skip past this photo. It's not gruesome.
No.
For days after his death, thousands of residents came to view the man who terrorized their community. Notoriously, there were decades of speculation that the man murdered was not, in fact, John Dillinger, but a notorious Fallout guy, Jimmy Lawrence. After FBI facial recognition was ran, it was determined to 100% be John Dillinger. And so this is that photo of him receiving his mask. And there was a lot of speculation that it wasn't him. He was missing scars and other like very clearly like noticeable features about John Dillinger. But I find it interesting that in combination with the death mask and making of that death mask, they were later able to confirm
his
that
identity
is in fact him.
Yeah.
And kind of end the speculation, you know, forever.
I agree. That's really cool.
So it's a really fascinating photo. Like you have a couple the doctor, I'm assuming the mortician is kind of practicing, and then the coroner, I assume, is the guy kind of to the right, kind of watching. And then you have a couple nurses watching, and then a couple
possibly
random,
like even like an FBI agents or something like that kind of next to them, supervising the whole process and like carryover, making sure everything is, keeping above board. When you have somebody that notorious, you kind of, you make sure you're part of the whole process until the end of it, because you just don't want anything to go wrong.
So the next mask that I'm going to tell you about is arguably the most famous. And I have tried to practice the French pronunciation of her name, and I have effectively given up. I've tried. Okay. So I'm going to play it for you.
Okay.
L'inconnu de la scène.
L'inconnu de la scène.
Which like translated to English means the unknown woman of the Seine. In the late 1880s, a woman's body was found in the Seine River in Paris. The body had no signs of violence or trauma, and so it was widely believed that she committed suicide by drowning in the river that flows directly through Paris. She was brought to the Paris morgue, and immediately her beauty and calm, almost peaceful face became famous. A pathologist working at the morgue became entranced by her beauty and made a plaster cast of her face. And I found a quote from the pathologist. Quote, "Her beauty was breathtaking and showed few signs of distress at the time of passing. So bewitching that I knew beauty as such must be preserved." End quote. So I'm going to have you look at the photo.
I mean, she does look like a gorgeous young woman. And like truly like peaceful and happy. Like there's like this almost like tilt to her cheeks, like the pressure to like smile is in there. And then like even the way her eyes are, like sometimes, when you close your eyes, you kind of your nose crunches a little bit, so you get the wrinkles there. Or like sometimes your eyeballs like flutter and it feels like movement. But like she truly just looks like she's smiling, or she's like looking up into the sun and just like breathing in, and so like a soft smile comes up because she's just like in that very peaceful moment. Like she looks literally like I'm gonna say captured again, but like she looks captured, but like it's more like it looks like they captured a moment, a piece from
Well,
her.
and that she could wake up at any moment, right?
Yeah,
Like you could almost
like
just
she
like
doesn't
tap her
and be
and
like,
her
"Oh,
eyes would
excuse me."
open.
Yeah.
So her body was never claimed, and she to this day has never been identified.
Oh, wow.
What I found really interesting is all around the world, her face is famous in homes all around Paris and a lot of Europe. Her photo would hang in people's homes because she was just that beautiful, almost
Yeah.
the likeness of the Mona Lisa, like that same quality of calm, but yet you're curious and interested.
Well, yeah, there's this intrigue to it that makes you want to just kind of keep staring at it and figure out all the things. What is she thinking of? What brings that level of like calmness and peace? And there's just this richness to it that, yeah, I agree. It's definitely like fascinating. Like I could sit here and talk about all the things that I'm like wondering with her for hours because there's just, she has this very, like you said, very peaceful face that just makes you have all of these questions.
And finally, her likeness was used for the first ever resuscitation Annie doll in 1958. So her image is still the original doll. The original structure of her face is the unknown woman of the sin.
Wow. That's amazing.
I really hope that you found this episode as interesting as I did. I know the conversation around death and the death industry can feel really macabre and really uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about. And with that, it is so complex. And I'm really anxiously awaiting my own trip to the Seattle Death Museum. So tickets are $12.50. But due to the size of the museum, only 6 people at a time are allowed to really view this fascinating space. And I'm going to be linking their website for ticket purchasing and really any additional information about the museum. But if you're in the Seattle area or you're planning to be in the Seattle area, I highly, highly, highly suggest going. And I've never been. I think it's just fascinating.
It really is.
I could keep going and going and going and going. But I didn't want to make this a like 2-hour episode. I think we're nearing about an hour, kind of give or take. But it's something that the older I'm getting, the more and more I'm finding myself being pulled to and really kind of fascinated by. Like I think about that image of John Dillinger and how it really truly did help end decades of speculation on if he was still roaming and terrorizing the streets of Chicago or did he in fact die. I think without that mask there would be still so many unanswered questions.
Agreed.
And a true monster could still be, lingering around the streets. And the history of death masks is so interesting. Like that was just like a teeny little toe in the pool of some of the most famous. Napoleon has a death mask. I could have kept going and going.
I believe you.
I finally had to stop.
I will get to know this all on our next car ride where you will tell me all the death masks. You all will unfortunately have to research this information yourself independently.
Yeah, I finally had to stop myself. I had reached this point where I had like 95 tabs open. I had read pretty much this one book almost cover to cover. And most of it is pictures because I'm like a picture book gal, like a toddler. But it's so interesting to me, and that there is a space where it's all just in one. Like I can't even imagine what the energy of that room must feel like. And when we get a chance to actually go, I'll probably do a part 2 to this so we can actually like talk about the things that we got to see there and experience there, because I would love to talk more about the history of embalming, the history of mourning wear, specifically during the Victorian period, because I find it truly fascinating. The only thing I'm not interested in is the dolls. Like I find that part of this museum terrifying, but I did make it through the room of dolls at Zach Bagan's
You did.
haunted
I
museum.
mean, you stood right at the door. You went in because everyone else went in, and then you like stood at the door. And as soon as somebody gave you the out, you were out. But
Yeah.
you did walk into the room.
And I looked at the ground most of the time
You
and at
did.
my feet because I was like, I really.
I looked over my shoulder at you a couple times, and I saw you. You were like, "How can I avoid all interaction with this room as possible?"
Well, and when I was doing my research, I like stumbled back down into Robert the haunted doll, and I remembered how much the idea of Robert just traumatizes me. And then there's another doll that said to even if you look at her image, even through a phone or a computer, you can be haunted or cursed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'm good on the haunted doll part. Like I might stick my little pinky toe back in after we find out some of the other dolls in their collection to see if I can find any more information about them. But their website was really a wealth of knowledge for me. And then I kind of just like branched out. I have no clue who their postmortem photography pictures are of or what death masks they have. So I left that open because I didn't want to know. I wanted to be surprised when we get to go.
Yeah.
And not already know,
Everything
the story behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. We want to experience it just like y'all.
Exactly. I think it's really kind of cool but creepy that they have a replica of Annabelle. Like I don't know if I would want to have a replica of Annabelle.
That's definitely a choice.
When we were going through my parents' stuff, I think you were there. It might have been my sister-in-law. We stumbled upon a Raggedy Ann and Andy doll, and I was like, nope.
I remember that.
That's a big nope.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, that's a big nope for me. But yeah, that's kind of the end of this episode. I'm really excited to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on this particular episode. I know it is a little outside of our normal content, but kind of fit right in with that like spooky, weird vibe of October. So let me know if you guys want a part 2.
I want a part 2.
And if you're here locally and want to go with us, I think you can arrange for a group. I think that would be so much fun.
Oh, so cool.
And we can see if we can make that happen. But if you know somebody who works there, give them our contact information because I would love to go. I'm going to like tag them and everything and be like, hello.
Yes. Hey,
it's me.
Shout out. Unintentional shout out in case you wanted it, but
it's
you
me,
get it whether you want it or not.
Just like a gigantic fangirl. Like when I go, I'm like,
full fangirl.
Like I'm going to have to like contain my excitement. Like almost have to put like tape over my mouth because like, I know these things. I'm so excited.
Yep. Yes.
All right, Sarah, can you tell everybody about our social medias?
Absolutely. So you can always reach out to us on our Instagram at Mysterious PNW Pod. That's definitely one of our favorite places to be. So definitely reach out to us there. But if you don't have Instagram, totally fine. We are on Facebook at Mysterious Pacific Northwest. A lot of the same information. We get a lot of contact from both our Facebook and our Instagram accounts. So both are definitely active for us. But if social media isn't your vibe, which totally fine because I hate it as well, is our email at mysteriousPNWpod@gmail.com. And that's a great place to send case suggestions, your thoughts and theories about anything we've talked about today or other cases. We love hearing from you guys. It really does make our day, make our week every time we do. And then if you're not super into the social media or reaching out and contacting and you want to stay antisocial, but you still want to support us, please leave a review and 5-star rating, hopefully. On whatever platform you're listening to. It really does help us promote the podcast and get all of our episodes out there, and really helps us reach a whole nother audience, which we just want to continue to grow this podcast so we can continue to give you guys all kinds of weird, creepy, and fun and not so fun stories and cases to talk about.
Well, and Sarah doesn't know this yet because I literally am just looking at it because of you guys and because of how much you listen and how much you share. Our Spotify impressions are up to 41,767.
Wow.
And kind of the rough like breakdown of that is 19,000 times that has shown up in somebody's Spotify home screen. So like when you're searching at the bottom, like mine says your shows and then shows we think you might like, we're showing up there 19,000 times.
That's crazy.
And then this statistic blows my mind. We have been searched 17,849 times.
Wow.
That means 17,000 people have typed in Mysterious Pacific Northwest.
Wow.
And either popped in and listened to an episode or did what 4,490 other people did, which was saved us to their library to listen to later. Like,
wow.
I'm guilty.
Look at you at all the numbers.
I'm guilty of doing that. Like, I'll see a show like kind of pop up and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to come back to that. Just not right now.
No. Yeah.
Right now is not the time for this particular podcast or whatever. And then I kind of circle, back around to them. So that means 4,000 people have thought that way about our show. And that is because of every single one of you guys that tune in every single week to hear us tell these stories, listen to these stories, and then you turn around and share those stories. But every time you leave us a review or a rating, specifically on like Apple Podcasts, you can actually leave us like a full-on like paragraph or sentence about our show. Yeah. It really is making a humongous difference and lets us really, and I think we've said this, but we haven't said it recently, like live out a combined dream of ours.
Yes.
Like I'm so excited to kind of continue to see what happens next for our show. And everything positive is because of you guys. So
yes, absolutely.
Keep doing what you're doing. But if you haven't yet given us a review, please leave us that little treat and we'll continue to give you tricks for the rest of the month.
Absolutely.
I think it's a fair trade.
I think it's a very reasonable trade.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you on our next episode, which will be a mini Monday of, I think, Sarah, a pretty notorious Everett mansion.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm so excited. So excited. Well, you guys have a great weekend. Get out, go to a pumpkin patch, go to the Seattle Death Museum, go to Spooked in Seattle.
Definitely check them out for sure.
Yep. And we will see you guys soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you again for all your patience and support while I recover. It really does mean the world. I'll be back behind the mic soon, bringing you more dark, strange and unsettling stories from history. A massive thank you again to the Mysterious PNW Pod for stepping in and helping out during this rough patch. They've been incredibly generous, and I am genuinely grateful. For my next episode, there will be another episode swap with a different show from the Umbrella Collective, and you won't want to miss it. So with all that out the way, thank you again for listening. Join us next time for another dark episode and more dark history.